Did you know that a simple movement you make before bed could quietly trigger a stroke while you sleep without pain, without warning, and without a single sound? It might be something you've done for years, turning too quickly, rubbing your neck, crossing your legs, or taking a few deep breaths to relax. Harmless, right? But as a brain doctor, I've seen too many patients, men and women over 60, who went to bed feeling fine and woke up unable to move, speak, or even recognize their loved ones. No heart attack, no fall, just a stroke that struck silently in the night, all because of the way they moved before lying down. You see, after age 60, your blood vessels become less flexible, your blood thickens, and your circulation slows. That means small movements that once relieved tension can now form blood clots, cut off oxygen, and trigger strokes when you least expect it while you're fast asleep. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 bedtime movements that every senior in America needs to know. 7 small habits that might feel comforting, but could be putting your brain at risk every single night. Stay with me, because what you learn today might just save your life or the life of someone you love. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Jerking the neck or rolling it suddenly before bed. If you're over 60, there's one small movement you might do every night that could quietly set the stage for a stroke while you sleep, and you'd never know it. It's that simple habit of rolling or jerking your neck before bed. You sit at the edge of the mattress trying to loosen the stiffness of the day, tilting your head side to side, maybe even doing a quick circle to stretch out the tension. It feels innocent, even soothing. But as a brain doctor, I can tell you, this tiny motion can be far more dangerous than it seems. Here's the truth that most seniors never hear. As we age, the arteries in the neck, the carotid and vertebral arteries, lose their flexibility. They become less elastic, more fragile. Every sharp twist or backward roll of the neck can cause microscopic tears in the inner lining of those vessels. And when that happens, your body rushes to repair the damage by forming a blood clot. You don't feel it. There's no warning, no pain, no dizziness at first, but that clot sits there silently, waiting. During the night, as your blood pressure naturally rises in the early morning hours, that small clot can dislodge. It travels upward through the arteries until it reaches a narrow vessel in the brain, and then it stops. Oxygen is cut off. In an instant, brain cells begin to die. You might wake up unable to speak, unable to move your arm, or unable to remember your own name. That's how a single bedtime neck roll, something you've done hundreds of times, can trigger a stroke before sunrise. I once treated a 74-year-old man from Ohio, a retired firefighter named Thomas. Strong, disciplined, still proud of his independence. Every night before bed, he'd roll his head in slow circles, a habit from his firefighting days. One morning, his wife found him slumped in bed, his eyes open but his words trapped inside. The scan showed a clot in his left middle cerebral artery, one of the most common sites of ischemic stroke. There was no heart disease, no smoking history, no skipped medication, just years of pressure and twisting on fragile neck arteries that had finally reached their breaking point. Thomas survived, but the damage changed everything. He can't drive anymore. His speech is slow, deliberate. His right hand trembles when he tries to hold a coffee cup. And when I visited him months later, he told me something I'll never forget. Doc, I thought I was helping myself. I was just trying to stretch my neck. I didn't know I was hurting my brain. The danger isn't in the movement itself, it's in the speed, the force, and the aging vessels that can no longer adapt. The carotid arteries sit just beneath the skin on either side of the neck, carrying life giving blood to your brain. When they're twisted, even briefly, blood flow slows. When they're stretched, the inner lining can tear. And when blood flow slows long enough, it thickens, it clots, and it kills. So tonight, before you go to bed, resist that urge to roll out the tension. If your neck feels stiff, place a warm compress on your shoulders, stretch gently, keep your chin level with your chest, move slowly, breathe evenly, because one wrong twist could mean never speaking another word again. And if you think that's unsettling, wait until you hear what happens when you rub the same arteries with your fingers, a habit that feels comforting, but can stop the heart in seconds. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Rubbing or massaging the neck too hard before bed. If you're over 60, I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. How often do you rub your neck before going to bed? Maybe you sit on the edge of the bed, reach up, and knead the sides of your neck with your fingers, trying to relax the stiffness of the day. It feels harmless, even comforting, a nightly ritual that helps you unwind. But as a brain doctor, I have to tell you something that will likely shock you. This innocent bedtime habit can trigger strokes, it can form blood clots, and in some cases, it can even stop the heart. You see, the sides of your neck, the soft places where your fingers press, are home to 2 of the most vital arteries in the human body, the carotid arteries. These vessels carry oxygen-rich blood directly to your brain. Just beneath them lies a tiny, powerful structure called the carotid sinus, a pressure sensor that tells your heart when to slow down or speed up. In young, healthy arteries, it's well protected. But as we age, the walls of those arteries become thinner, more fragile, and more sensitive. When you massage your neck too deeply, especially along the sides where those arteries run, you're not just loosening muscles. You're pressing directly on the body's main blood highways. That pressure can trick your brain into thinking your blood pressure has suddenly spiked. In response, your heart rate drops, your vessels dilate, your blood pressure crashes, and for a few seconds, blood flow to your brain slows dangerously, sometimes enough to make you dizzy, lightheaded, or even black out. But what's more terrifying is what happens beneath the surface. That same pressure can cause microscopic injury to the lining of your carotid arteries. When that inner wall is disturbed, blood tries to patch it by forming a clot. It starts small, a sticky collection of platelets and fibrin, but as the hours pass, it grows. Then, when you lie down to sleep and your blood pressure rises in the early morning hours, that clot can break free. It travels upward, lodging itself in a delicate vessel inside your brain. Within seconds, brain tissue begins to die. No warning, no pain, just silence. You might wake up unable to move one side of your body, unable to form words, or unable to remember where you are, all because of a habit that felt relaxing. I remember one of my patients, Mrs. Elaine Morrison, a 79-year-old retired librarian from Kansas. She used to rub her neck every night after reading in bed. It helped me sleep, she told me. One morning, she didn't wake up as usual. Her husband found her slumped over the pillow, barely breathing, unable to speak. The scan showed an ischemic stroke, a clot lodged deep in her left hemisphere. The neurologist traced it back to trauma in her carotid artery, most likely from years of nightly pressure on her neck. She had no heart disease, no atrial fibrillation, just fragile arteries and a well-intentioned habit that turned deadly. When I saw her in rehabilitation weeks later, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I thought I was helping myself, doctor. I just didn't know." That's the hardest part for me to hear, because so many older adults are doing the same thing tonight, unaware of the danger. So please, if you're someone who rubs your neck before bed, stop pressing on the sides. Instead, use light, upward strokes behind the neck or along the shoulders. Apply a warm compress. Let your muscles relax naturally, because one deep press in the wrong spot can change your life forever. And if you think that sounds frightening, wait until you discover what happens when you stand up too fast before bed. A simple movement that can send blood rushing out of your brain and trigger a silent collapse before you even reach the light switch. 3. Standing up or bending over suddenly after sitting on the bed. If you're over 60, there's a small, almost invisible movement you probably do every single night. One that feels harmless but can quietly lead to dizziness, confusion, or even a stroke before morning. You might sit on the edge of the bed, rub your legs, maybe say a quiet prayer, then stand up quickly to turn off a light or grab something you forgot across the room. Or maybe you lean forward to pick up a slipper, plug in your phone, or move the blanket from the floor. It takes just a second. You do it without thinking. But for an aging circulatory system, that one sudden motion can be catastrophic. You see, when you stand up or bend down abruptly after sitting still, your blood pressure can drop in an instant, a condition known as orthostatic hypotension. In younger years, your arteries and heart adjust immediately. Blood flows upward, the brain gets what it needs. But as we age, that reflex slows. Our blood vessels stiffen, the heart doesn't pump quite as fast, and the brain, the most oxygen-hungry organ in the body, becomes vulnerable to even brief moments of reduced flow. For just a few seconds, the brain is undersupplied. You might feel dizzy, lightheaded, or see black spots, signs that your brain cells are starving for oxygen. But here's what's more dangerous. When blood pressure drops, the flow becomes sluggish, especially in narrow or plaque-lined arteries. That sluggish blood can begin to pool and thicken, creating the perfect environment for blood clots to form. These clots may remain stuck in your neck arteries through the night until hours later, your blood pressure rises again in the early morning surge. That's when they break loose, traveling to the brain and triggering a stroke while you sleep. I once treated a patient, Mr. Henry Lowell, a 76-year-old Navy veteran from Florida. He had no major health problems other than mild hypertension. His wife told me that he had a habit. Every night, he'd sit on the edge of the bed for a while, then stand up quickly to switch off the ceiling fan before lying down. One evening, he stood too fast, felt dizzy for a moment, then brushed it off and went to bed. The next morning, he couldn't move his left arm. His face drooped slightly, and his speech was slurred. The scan revealed a small but devastating ischemic stroke, a clot blocking a branch of his middle cerebral artery. What happened was simple but tragic. That brief moment of low blood pressure caused the blood in his carotid artery to slow just enough to let a tiny clot form. Hours later, as he slept, his blood pressure rose and pushed that clot straight into his brain. It triggered the stroke silently without warning. As a neurologist, I see this pattern over and over. Older adults assume faintness or lightheadedness is just part of aging, but it's not. It's a warning sign that your brain isn't getting enough blood, that your vessels are struggling to keep up. The older the body gets, the less forgiving it becomes of these sudden changes. Your heart and brain need time to communicate. When you stand too fast, you're asking your body to sprint when it can barely jog. So tonight, before you rise from your bed, pause. Let your feet rest flat on the floor. Count slowly to 5. Take one deep, calm breath before standing. If you need to bend down, brace yourself, and move gently. These few seconds of patience can prevent dizziness, a fall, or even a life altering stroke. Remember, strokes don't just come from high blood pressure or poor diet. Sometimes they come from one simple movement that your body can't handle anymore. So don't rush. Give your brain time to catch up, because the life you save might be your own. And if you think standing too quickly can be dangerous, wait until you hear what happens when your breathing, something you think helps you relax, starts working against your brain. What most seniors think is deep breathing before bed could quietly be cutting off the very oxygen your brain depends on. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Taking deep forced breaths right before sleep. If you're over 60, you've probably been told that deep breathing helps you relax before bed, to fill your lungs, to calm your nerves, to get more oxygen. It sounds healthy, almost therapeutic. You sit on the edge of the bed, inhale sharply through your nose, exhale hard through your mouth, maybe repeat it a few times until you feel lightheaded. It feels like you're releasing the tension of the day. But what if I told you that this very habit, this innocent act of deep breathing, could actually starve your brain of oxygen, slow your circulation, and quietly set the stage for a stroke in the middle of the night? Here's the truth most people never hear. Forced or exaggerated breathing can do more harm than good, especially in older adults. When you breathe too deeply and too fast, you blow out too much carbon dioxide, CO2, the gas your body actually needs in balance to keep blood vessels open. When CO2 drops too low, the arteries in your brain constrict, blood flow slows, oxygen delivery to your brain cells drops. For a few seconds, you may feel dizzy or tingly, but when this happens repeatedly, night after night, the effect becomes dangerous. It weakens the brain's ability to regulate blood flow and increases the risk of clot formation in those fragile, aging vessels. I once had a patient, Mr. Robert Evans, a 72-year-old retired accountant from California, a kind, disciplined man. He prided himself on keeping a healthy bedtime routine. Every night before bed, he'd sit cross-legged on his mattress and perform what he called oxygen therapy. 10 deep, powerful breaths followed by holding his breath for several seconds. He believed it strengthened his lungs. But one morning, his wife found him sitting upright in bed, dazed and unable to move his right hand. He had suffered a small but serious ischemic stroke. The scan showed a blockage in one of the tiny arteries deep inside his brain. There was no heart disease, no smoking, no cholesterol problem. What he did have was a pattern of nightly hyperventilation that constricted his blood vessels and slowed circulation long enough to allow a clot to form silently while he slept. When I explained it to his wife, she wept. He thought he was doing everything right, she said. And that's what makes this so terrifying, because for so many older adults, the line between relaxing and triggering danger is thinner than they realize. The aging brain is not as forgiving as it once was. The arteries that feed it, the carotids and vertebrals, are no longer soft and resilient. They're rigid, sensitive to even slight changes in blood chemistry. A single minute of overbreathing can reduce oxygen flow enough to make those vessels spasm. That spasm slows blood, and stagnant blood forms clots. Once that clot travels upward into the brain, the damage begins. True relaxation breathing should be soft, slow, and natural, not forced. Your chest shouldn't heave, your shoulders shouldn't rise. The air should feel like a quiet wave moving in and out. Gentle breathing keeps oxygen and CO2 balanced, ensuring your brain stays nourished through the night. So tonight, when you sit on your bed and prepare to rest, remember this: your breath is medicine, but only when taken in the right dose. Don't force it, let it flow, because one exaggerated breath may do more than make you dizzy. It may be the quiet moment that changes your life forever. And if you think breathing too deeply can harm your brain, wait until you hear what happens when your own body position, the way you curl or cross your legs before sleep, slowly cuts off circulation and builds a blood clot without you ever feeling it. 5. Crossing legs tightly or curling too hard while settling into bed. If you're over 60, there's a familiar motion you probably do every night without thinking. You lie down, pull your blanket up, and curl your legs in tight, maybe crossing one over the other for comfort. It feels safe. It feels warm. For many, it's the same position you've slept in for decades, a habit formed long before your hair turned gray. But here's the truth few seniors ever hear. That simple movement, the act of curling too tightly or crossing your legs while drifting off to sleep, can quietly restrict your blood flow, slow your circulation, and in time, form blood clots that may trigger strokes while you sleep. Let me explain why this happens. When you cross your legs or curl up in bed, especially if you do it tightly, you're putting pressure on the major veins in your thighs and knees, the same veins responsible for carrying blood back to your heart. As we age, those veins weaken. The valves inside them, tiny flaps that keep blood flowing upward, lose their strength. So when they're compressed by body weight or tight muscles for hours, blood begins to pool in the lower limbs. And pooled blood, especially in older adults whose circulation is already slower and whose blood tends to be thicker due to mild dehydration, becomes a breeding ground for clots. Once that clot forms in your legs, a condition doctors call deep vein thrombosis, DVT, it doesn't just stay there. It can break free at any time, travel upward through the veins, and get trapped in the lungs or brain. When it reaches the brain, it blocks the delicate arteries that feed oxygen to your cells. And that's when a stroke occurs. It doesn't give you a warning. You don't feel pain. You simply wake up in the morning unable to move one side of your body, or you never wake up at all. I remember one of my patients vividly, Mrs. Janet O'Reilly, a 78-year-old grandmother from Texas. She was healthy, active, and loved quilting. Every night, she would curl on her right side with her knees pulled tight to her chest, saying it helped her back pain. One morning, her daughter found her confused and unable to stand. At the hospital, scans revealed a small but devastating stroke, and tests showed evidence of a blood clot that had traveled from her leg during the night. She hadn't smoked, she hadn't missed medication, she had simply slept in a position that slowed her circulation and gave that clot a chance to form. Janet cried when I told her what happened. "I never thought the way I slept could hurt me," she said. And that's what makes this so frightening. Because for older adults, what once felt comfortable or natural can now be dangerous. The veins of a 70-year-old don't behave like those of a 30-year-old. The blood is thicker. The vessels are stiffer. The heart pumps slower. Even a few hours of restricted flow can create conditions for a clot to develop, especially at night when you're still and unaware. If you sleep with your legs crossed or curled too tight, it's time to change. Stretch your legs before bed. Keep them slightly apart, relaxed, and uncrossed. A small pillow between your knees can help maintain alignment and support gentle circulation. And if your ankles swell or your legs feel heavy in the morning, that's not just aging. It's your body begging for better blood flow. Your comfort should never come at the cost of your circulation, because one small clot, formed silently overnight, can take away your independence, your speech, your memory, the very things that make you who you are. And if you think leg position is harmless, wait until you learn what happens when you twist your neck suddenly in bed to grab a phone or reach for a pillow. That single, quick movement can cut off blood flow to your brain in seconds. 6. Turning quickly in bed or jerking the head to reach for something. If you're over 60, there's a small, instinctive movement you probably do every night, one that feels harmless, routine, even necessary, yet it could quietly threaten your brain's blood flow in ways you'd never imagine. You're lying in bed, half asleep, and you suddenly roll over to grab your phone, adjust your blanket, or reach for a glass of water on the nightstand. It's such a simple act, a quick twist of the head, a sharp roll of the shoulders, and then you drift right back to sleep. But for an aging brain, that one sudden motion can be far more dangerous than it seems. It can compress the arteries in your neck, disrupt your circulation, and in the silence of the night, it can form blood clots that later trigger strokes without any warning at all. To understand why, you have to remember what aging does to the body. As we grow older, the arteries in our neck, particularly the vertebral and carotid arteries, lose their flexibility. They become narrower, less elastic, and more fragile. They no longer move smoothly with your head and neck the way they did when you were young. So when you suddenly jerk your head or twist your upper body while lying down, you're not just moving your muscles, you're pulling and compressing the vessels that supply blood directly to your brain. That brief pressure can drastically slow circulation for a few seconds, and in those seconds, the risk begins. When blood flow is reduced, the oxygen supply to the brain drops. In younger people, this drop is temporary and harmless. But in older adults, whose vessels are already partially narrowed by age or plaque buildup, that drop can cause turbulence in the arteries, and turbulence is the perfect environment for clots to form. These clots can start small, invisible, silent. You don't feel them forming, but during the night, as your blood pressure rises in the early morning hours, the time when most strokes occur, that small clot can dislodge. It moves upward into the brain, where it gets trapped in a delicate artery. In seconds, brain tissue begins to die. You might wake up with slurred speech, a weak arm, or the inability to stand, and have no idea what went wrong. I remember treating a patient named Richard, a 73-year-old retired mechanic from Pennsylvania. His wife told me he had a habit of jerking in bed whenever he forgot to plug in his phone. He'd roll suddenly, grab it, plug it in, and turn back over. One morning, she woke to find him half-conscious, his mouth drooping, unable to lift his left arm. The scans showed a clot in his right middle cerebral artery, a stroke. The likely trigger wasn't a skipped pill or high cholesterol. It was that nightly habit, those quick, forceful movements in bed that repeatedly strained his neck's blood vessels. Richard survived, but his recovery was slow. He told me later with a quiet regret, "Doc, I never thought something so small could do so much damage." But that's the truth about aging. The things that once felt trivial now carry weight. The body doesn't bounce back as it used to. The arteries that once stretched and healed now tear and clot. So the next time you reach for something in bed, slow down. Roll gently, move your whole body together, not just your head or neck. Keep what you need, your phone, your water, your glasses, within easy reach. Because one sudden twist is all it takes for a lifetime of strength to vanish in a moment of stillness. And if you think that's frightening, wait until you learn what happens when you sit hunched forward on the bed every night before lying down. A position that quietly starves your brain of oxygen before your head even hits the pillow. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now, let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Sitting or leaning forward on the bed for too long before lying down. If you're over 60, I want you to picture this scene, one that plays out in bedrooms all across America every single night. You're sitting on the edge of your bed, the lamp still on, your elbows resting on your knees. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone, reading a devotional, or saying your nightly prayer. You're tired, your back aches, your neck droops slightly forward. You sit there for a while, head bent, shoulders curved, waiting for sleep to find you. It feels peaceful, even comforting, a small ritual before lying down. But what you don't realize is that this quiet position, this simple act of sitting with your head tilted forward, may be silently starving your brain of oxygen and setting the stage for a stroke that strikes in your sleep. Here's the medical truth most people don't know. When you lean forward for long periods, even just 10 minutes, you're compressing the arteries and veins in your neck, the carotid and vertebral arteries, which are responsible for carrying blood to and from your brain. This bent position, combined with gravity, slows blood flow, reduces oxygen delivery, and increases venous pressure inside the head. The result is a kind of silent suffocation. Your brain is not getting the oxygen it needs, even while you're awake. For a younger person, this might not cause much harm, but for someone over 60, whose arteries are already stiff and whose blood may be thicker from mild dehydration, this reduced circulation can lead to blood pooling, vascular stress, and eventually clot formation. Those clots can sit quietly for hours. Then, when you finally lie down and your blood pressure rises slightly, or when your heart rate shifts during deep sleep, that tiny clot can move. Once it travels into one of the brain's smaller vessels, it blocks the flow of oxygen, and in seconds, brain tissue begins to die. No pain, no warning, just stillness. The kind of stillness that changes everything when you wake up. This is how a quiet bedtime posture can trigger strokes without a single sign or symptom the night before. I remember one of my patients, Mr. Leonard Matthews, a 79-year-old retired history teacher from Ohio. Every night, his wife said, he'd sit on the edge of their bed for 20 minutes reading his Bible before lying down. One morning, she found him sitting in that same spot, his book still open his eyes blank, and his right hand motionless. He was breathing, but barely. In the ER, scans showed a small but devastating stroke in his brainstem, the part of the brain that controls breathing and balance. There were no skipped medications, no major heart disease, just years of reduced neck blood flow from his nightly habit of sitting forward before bed. It wasn't the reading that hurt him, it was the posture. Head bent, arteries kinked, blood slowed, oxygen cut short. When I visited him months later, he was in therapy, relearning how to walk. He told me something I'll never forget. I thought I was honoring God every night before bed. I didn't know I was hurting myself. His story still haunts me because it's so common. So many older adults do the same, sitting, leaning forward, thinking they're simply resting, not realizing the position is quietly starving the brain they depend on. If this sounds like you, make one small change tonight. When you sit on your bed, keep your back straight and supported by a pillow or the headboard. Keep your chin level, not tucked into your chest. If you want to pray or read, sit upright or recline slightly, letting your neck stay open so blood can flow freely. Because even a few minutes of forward bending can slow circulation enough to create the perfect conditions for a clot to form. Remember, your body at this age doesn't forgive as easily as it used to. Blood moves slower. Arteries respond less. The smallest restriction can have enormous consequences. One wrong posture, one missed signal, one quiet night. That's all it takes. So tonight, as you sit at the edge of your bed, ask yourself, is my position helping my brain or hurting it? Because what feels calm might actually be the calm before the storm. And if you think posture before sleep is the only danger, wait until you hear the truth about what happens after you close your eyes. How tiny nighttime habits, from head position to oxygen flow, decide whether your brain wakes restored or never wakes the same again. The final wake-up call: sleep is not just rest, it's protection. If you're over 60, every choice you make before bed holds more weight than you might realize. The body you live in today is not the same one you had 30 or 40 years ago. The vessels that carry life-giving blood to your brain are older, narrower, less forgiving. Your heart doesn't adjust as quickly, your blood thickens faster. And yet, most seniors go to bed each night as if time hasn't changed the rules. They move the same way, breathe the same way, and sleep the same way, unaware that these quiet routines could be the very things putting their brain at risk. The truth is simple and frightening at the same time. Most nighttime strokes are preventable. They don't come out of nowhere. They build slowly, silently, through years of habits that restrict blood flow, deprive the brain of oxygen, or encourage the blood to stagnate long enough to clot. The way you tilt your head, the way you cross your legs, the way you breathe or sit before lying down, these small, ordinary acts can decide whether your brain wakes refreshed or damaged beyond repair. As a neurologist, I've seen it too many times. A strong, independent man or woman goes to bed feeling fine, planning to garden, walk, or play with their grandchildren in the morning, and wakes up unable to move, unable to speak, their entire world forever changed, not because of a terrible accident or an unstoppable disease, but because of something as small as a sleeping position, a quick twist, or a skipped breath. But here's the power you still hold. You can change this. You can protect yourself. Start tonight. When you climb into bed, slow down. Move gently. Keep your head supported and your body relaxed. Avoid tight curls, crossed legs, or sudden turns. Let your breathing be soft and natural, not forced. Drink a little water before sleep. Take your prescribed medications faithfully, and give your brain the calm, steady circulation it needs to heal and restore itself overnight. Because sleep is not just rest. It's the brain's repair time. It's when your body clears toxins, balances blood pressure, and renews the cells that keep you alive. Every heartbeat, every breath, every movement in those quiet hours either protects or endangers you. You get to decide which one it will be. So tonight, as you pull up your covers and close your eyes, ask yourself this one question. Is the way I'm sleeping protecting my brain or slowly hurting it? Because when you protect your sleep, you protect everything that makes you who you are. Your voice, your memories, your independence, your life. And that, my friend, is always worth protecting. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.